Welcome back to Culture and Christianity, and tonight we're talking about Christianity and diviners. And before the break, Mr. Nganga, we're talking about why the Bible does not support diviners, and we've read some of the quotes in the Bible. Maybe you can continue by telling us more.
We were going through the Bible to show that the Bible is totally against superstition, witchcraft, and divination. Deuteronomy chapter 18 verse 10 says, "Let no one be found among you who sacrifices their son or daughter in the fire." Many of us don't do that. "Who practices divinations." Some of us do that. "Or sorcery, or interpreting omens, or engages in witchcraft." You can see the Bible is putting in one group witchcraft, divination, omens. Omens are superstitions to say if I come out of my bed from the left, then I will have a bad day. Those are omens. And the Bible is saying you cannot be involved with it. So you need to understand that's the idea of, instead of trusting God, you look at the signs and you see the devil everywhere. It's not going to be right. Then if you skip verse 12 and 13 and go to verse 14, you'll see Deuteronomy 18, "The nations you will dispossess listen to those who practice sorcery or divination." Then Joshua 13:22 says, "In addition to these slain in battle, the rest had put to the sword Balaam, son of Beor, who practiced divination." Now, you remember Balak and Balaam and the whole issue about trying to curse the Israelites. In other words, the Moabites wanted to be protected through divination. Now the guy, it's actually his people are killed, but the Bible takes the trouble to record one of the people killed was Balaam, son of Beor. Because of the involvement, he knew God and still got involved in divination. That's the consequence of somebody who gets involved in these people. Then Ezekiel 37 verse 7, "Have you not seen false visions and uttered lying divinations when you say, the Lord declares, though I have not spoken?" So divination, here we have to be God, lying divinations. You claim to hear from your spirit, but the things you are saying are just putting fear in people and causing people to have allegiance with. And some pastors use it. It's something that you need to be careful about. Micah 3:6. "Therefore, night will come over you without visions, and darkness without divination. The sun will set for the prophets, and the day will be dark for them." In other words, the people practicing divinations, God is promising them darkness and no light, because they are seeking God in the way he has not approved. Let's come to Numbers about Balaam. "Now when Balaam saw that it pleased the Lord to bless Israel, he did not resort to divination as at other times. He turned his face towards the wilderness." In other words, the earlier you understand that your blessing will not come from a modomogo, from a diviner, that they come from God, the earlier you will stop following the prophets, the men of God, the people who seem to be the only one with the information about your future. You will resort and trust in God. You walk by faith, not by sight. In other words, you know God has saved you. He wants to move with you. It will not be necessary for you to actually go into those things. 2 Kings 17:17. "They sacrificed their sons and daughters in the fire. They practiced divination and sought omens and sold themselves to do evil in the eyes of the Lord, arousing his anger." When you participate in divination, you arouse God's anger. And I think that's something that we need to be aware of and ask God to help us. Let's come to the New Testament. Acts 8 verse 11. "They followed him because he had amazed them for a long time with sorcery." That is in the book of Acts, where they found a man who was amazing Simon and people feared him. But when God comes in his power, God has given the apostles power, but he doesn't allow them to practice it by telling people, you are going to get married, you're going to marry a tall boy. No, that's not the way you use the Spirit of God. He does not allow you to participate in that kind of an area. He doesn't bring himself to becoming a diviner, where you are telling people, you will go left, you will go right. No. Each person must learn to go to God on his own. So someone within no time realized whatever power he has was not useful. So he went to the apostles and says he'd like to be saved. But of course he made an error. He thought in the process he can buy the power of God. Acts 19:19, a number who had practiced sorcery brought their scrolls together and burned them publicly. When they calculated the value of the scrolls, the total came to 50,000 drachmas. What that means is that if you come from a family of diviners, and there are things you use to do divination, irrespective of how much money they will lose you, you cannot be a Christian and keep to those traditional belief system. They put it together, it was banned, and they were banning something of a lot of value. In fact, Exodus 22:18 says, do not allow sorcerers to be believed. In other words, if you are discovered in Israel, you are a sorcerer or diviner, they actually killed you. They did not allow you to live. And that's really something that's important. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 verse 3. But whoever loves God is known by God. What does that mean? You do not, once you know God knows you, God cares for you, God wants you to go to a good destination, you trust yourself in him. You do not spend your time in things that will you know, this idea of sorcery, divination, and making money is also repeated in Acts 16:16. Once when we were going to a place of prayer, we were met by a female slave who had a spirit by which she predicted the future. She earned a great deal of money for her owners by fortune telling. Obviously, the spirit was cast. She stopped doing it. It caused a big problem because the business of using the slave girl to earn money was actually destroyed. So I think in this program, I want to emphasize, whether you are going to divination traditional way or the new way of man of God who is using the gift to kind of make money, the God has condemned that method of life.
Okay, and how can you differentiate diviners from the true men of God?
Yeah, that's a difficult thing, because for sure, whatever the diviners are claiming to know, God knows it better. And God does choose to tell people some of this. But going through the whole of the Bible, we never see a man of God who sat waiting to tell people their fortunes. People are asked to trust in God rather than to seek a day-by-day direction about the future. Paul told them, walk by faith, not by sight. Sight will be much easier. You are told tomorrow you are meeting your husband to be. Easy, you don't struggle. But God has chosen not to tell us that way. He has chosen you trust him one step at a time. So how do you tell whether your pastor is a diviner? 3 things I'll tell you. Number 1, when he creates an impression that you cannot discover God for yourself, you cannot hear God for yourself, that you need to go to him only, then that's a diviner. Because Christianity, according to Peter, says when you come to Christianity, you come to the priesthood of all believers. What does that mean? One moment I'm a non-Christian, the next moment I know the Lord. As soon as Christ lives in me, I can take myself direct to God, and God can talk to me. What is even more interesting, I've been born again for more than 50 years. You can get saved yesterday, and today he gives you the gift of healing. And although I pray and even a cord cannot be healed, You pray for a couple and walks and wait a minute. But I'm a Christian 50 years. He only got saved yesterday. God chooses to show. So the pastor himself may not have the gift of the congregant. And any pastor who is not aware that the gift of God does not depend on longevity, does not depend on theology. God chooses to give the gift to anyone. Is a person who doesn't believe the scriptures. So if you have a pastor who you can't even pray, and you see some of them, even when he comes to your house, you want to thank God for the food, Pastor, pray for us. It's like God can't hear your prayer of thanks. And you're the one who cooked the food. But now the pastor must pray. When you get a pastor who believes his prayer is special, his prayer can do things, your prayer as a congregant can't. There's a problem with him. Of course, it is true he also has gifts. But you also need to understand you also could have a gift. And until you can prove that you have no gift, he needs to understand you can pray. So the any previous biblical pastor encourages his congregation to go to God. Is your child sick? You don't ring the pastor on the other side. The first thing you do is you talk to God. And you tell God that my child is sick. And you know you might be the only prayer required for your child to get well. So the first indication that you have a pastor who is a diviner, who is a go-between God and man, against Hebrews chapter 9, which is there is only one mediator between God and man, Jesus Christ. So there is no mediator. That's why we encourage the Catholics to go to the Bible. Mary cannot be a mediator because Christ is the only mediator. And many pastors who have this spirit of divination are coming in between, where they do not encourage their congregants to go to God. And the second reason, differentiating factor, may be the cause of the first one. They want money. In fact, they tell you, plant a seed. They now talk to God about why you need. He cannot tell you, I don't need your seed. The God I believe in is the God you believe in. Talk to God, and I'll help you as you talk to God. Now, once the two of you are praying, you're only helping, he cannot ask you for money. So they have come to where they do not want to do the thing until you have produced the money. So they want to payment in advance. Si kula na kulipa, ni kulipa na kula. Before you can enjoy the services of the man of God, you must pay upfront. Whether you call it seed faith or whatever, the issue is, if you meant to give to God, why are you encouraging people to give direct to you? You are a man on the TV. Why can't they give the money to their church, but you still pray for them? The fact that you say money should be sent direct to you tells you have replaced God, and you are starting to play the role of God. If they want to thank God, they can give money anyway to God's work. It doesn't have to come to you. So you are a very daring man to ask people to give money to you as if you are now God. Now, it's important to understand when people do that, it is a sign that what you are dealing with is not a man of God. It's a person who has become a diviner, a go-between. People of God must be taught to go directly to God. And we still have a role for pastors because God has instituted pastors. So pastors are very important people. We must still allow them, respect them, but they must teach us to go to God and teach us to go to them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ng'ang'a. We've come to the end of our program tonight. We've been talking about Christianity and diviners, and we have quoted a few Bible verses that diviners is not accepted in the Bible. Have a blessed night. I'm your host, Mercy Kiari.